Cam Newton, The Burden of PC, and the Gulag. Good evening, all. It's good to see everybody wherever you are. And Paul and I had been talking, and we thought that we'd start doing some regular Skype sessions between us on current events and men's issues as they relate to current events and current events and as they relate to men's issues. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about Cam Newton, and we're going to talk about Gulag, I think. So what do you think, Paul?
Oh, well, it's a couple of related stories, and it also, this subject of basically what we're talking about is political correctness, and in particular, how it's being enforced now by corporations versus the government. And that's a lot of what I wanted to bring to the table here was a discussion about that. But I think we can, and I'll add that the reason behind that is that I've had my own problems recently with Google, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Yep. I think this first story, which you have all the details on, is very relevant and will provide a very good intro to what we're talking about tonight.
I think so too. The whole thing with Cam Newton and his response to that female reporter. And Cam Newton responded to a question from a female reporter recently where she asked him a question about route running for one of his wide receivers. And he responded, "It's funny to hear a female talk about routes," which is, he thought it was funny. And I didn't see too much wrong with it, but everyone went bonkers. It's sexist kind of talk, and it's terrible, and blah, blah, blah. He has to apologize. And of course, he did apologize the next day. Or who knows, it was next day. But shortly after, he said, "After careful thought, I understand that my word choice was extremely degrading and disrespectful to women. And to be honest, that was not my intention." And he went on after that. Disrespectful and degrading to women? To say it was funny that she asked a question? That's bizarre. What do you think, Paul?
A feminist handed him the script for that apology. He was using their vernacular.
I mean, it's just, let's turn it around a little bit. If I was going to a sports bra convention and I was the only guy there and I'm asking this female and I'm saying, are you moving away from using Lycra or are you continuing its use? And how about, can you comment on encapsulation and compression? Of course, those are all new things with the sports bra industry. And if she said, "That's funny to hear a man talk about that," is she degrading all men by saying that? No. She's being honest. If she thought it was funny that I was saying something like that.
Fire her.
Yeah, really. I mean, my gosh. It's just unbelievable the stranglehold that the politically correct have on people's words.
Well, and more to the point, what Dannon, his sponsor, did, coming out with their bitter disappointment over his sexism. I mean, right under the bus.
Indeed, Dannon, one of his sponsors, said, "Yep. We are shocked and disheartened at the behavior and comments of Cam Newton towards this reporter, which we perceived as sexist and disparaging to all women."
And that's right. And they sensed a few less containers of their shitty yogurt being sold in the store. and of course, turned this guy into a monster over it.
Oh, God.
It is, but what I'm doing here, I'm shrugging.
Yeah.
Honestly, I am, because none of this is, and it follows the same pattern. I mean, I still think that these guys that get in the public crosshairs this way from ideologues that, want to silence them or punish them, they make the most horrible mistake in the world by apologizing.
Yes.
I mean, look, it didn't do Matt Taylor any good. He got on and cried like a 4-year-old for the cameras about how terribly sorry he was that he hurt people with his fucking shirt. And now this guy's apologizing for saying it was funny to hear a woman talk about a wide receiver's routes. Well, hell, it's not near as funny as like hearing a feminist talk about men's issues, but it is funny. there is some humor there, and it's unusual.
Yes,
It's like we're talking about me being somewhere talking about sports bras for women.
Yes.
It would be really funny. And
I wouldn't be pissed off if someone said that to me. They
No.
said it's funny that you talk about encapsulation and compression. I'd say, yeah, okay, answer the question.
Well, and all these people do. They look for any inroad. Anytime somebody makes a public statement,
Yeah.
no matter how innocent, if it can be spun into something demonic and horrifying to women, they're going to do it.
And proven.
It's apologize every time, too.
And proven to be hurtful to others. I mean, that's the key, is they're trying to make sure nothing is hurtful to people.
Well, and gosh, I mean, if they want somebody to attack, they could attack me, because I'm willing to point out that the reason that it's funny is because there aren't women out there fucking running routes as wide receiver.
Of course.
That's why it's funny.
Yes, of course.
Because it's something that men do.
Yeah. And only men do.
And it's evil to point that out.
Yes.
It's evil to say any incorrect truth.
You'd be a bully if you pointed that out. You'd be hurting people, Paul. You can't hurt people in this culture. And that's to me, that's the essence of it, is this whole idea that you cannot hurt people. The victimhood culture is based on this idea that you cannot hurt anyone, and hurting someone is the worst thing you could possibly do. Well, I've had 30 years of working with people in grief. And guess what? It's when people get hurt that they grow. It's when people get hurt that they start to learn how to deal with things in a different way. It's called human maturity. You go through times when you get beat up, and then you come out of it a little bit stronger. But the whole politically correct thing is trying to keep any hurt from happening. So they're trying to keep people from getting better. They're trying to keep people from getting mature. It's just mind-blowing.
Well, the thing is, if your life experience growing from pain depends on hearing somebody say it's funny to hear a woman talk about wide receivers routes, I think you're missing the bar. Man, if that's your growth experience, if that makes you a survivor, that you heard that statement as a woman, then you know what this reminds me of, Tom? It's just now dawned on me. It's old gynocentric fairy tale stuff. Remember The Princess and the Pea?
Sure.
And the prince was looking for a princess that would bruise if she had all this multi-layered mattress of goose down and all these soft materials, and he placed a single pea underneath it all, and the woman that bruised was the one he wanted. There are some dumb fucks back in these nursery rhymes, but that's sort of beside the point. But it's that whole image of being so fragile, so incredibly fragile.
Yes.
And this is coming from the movement for women's empowerment. This is what their pathway to being empowered is, to be the princess who is bruised by the pea under the mattress. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
And to accumulate enough bruises to be the victim winner,
Oh, yeah.
I've got more.
At least get enough bruises for a good Patreon or Kickstarter fund. But no, and it is reflective, and I guess as good a segue as any. Did you have anything more to add
we're good
on him?
Let's go to Gulag.
So, folks, whatever you do, if you're in the sports broadcast business or in the sports industry, don't say it's funny for a woman to throw a 60-yard touchdown pass. And you'll never get the opportunity, but you get my point. Let's move on. The king right now of bullying people,
oh boy,
for language is Google.
Yes.
We have really officially entered an age where corporations, not governments, are running the show.
Yep.
I mean, got all the politicians in their pockets. They're just quacking ducks anymore, doing what they're told to please corporate masters. And the corporate masters, regardless of who the politicians are in the White House, the corporate masters are, well, not just White House, but Congress too. Our masters are now telling us we found this out with the James Damore case. And we've known it for a while, but this one sort of highlighted, and it's interesting because I've had 5 different media contacts in the past 30 days over the Damore case requesting interviews, including Katie Couric's group that's doing a Nat Geo. Everybody wants to know. And it's amazing that for most of these inquiries, they are asking this isn't just seeking out a hit piece. I'm sure there'll be some elements of that in their coverage, but they are trying to get what the dissenting views are in there. And recently,
that'd be a surprise.
And the New York Times did a piece recently. Here's an interesting example of this. The New York Times recently did a piece, and they interviewed me, and they interviewed Warren, and they interviewed Cassie J for this, and quoted us in there without attacking us, without saying, here's what he said 16 years ago that was so terrible about women. They just quoted us, left us in the piece. Media Matters turned around and lost their shit over it. Wrote this scathing hit piece on the New York Times because they were actually talking to us like we were human beings with opinions instead, this stuff, which they're so fond of portraying.
Great.
But to refresh everybody's memory, James Damore wrote a memo on gender equity and Google's policy on hiring, what they were looking for quotas, all that stuff, and pointed out in rather brilliant terms, using very sound scientific research and backup, that women largely make different choices than men when it comes to STEM. And questioning the narrative of whether the women's so-called lack of representation in STEM was a matter of gender discrimination or whether it was a matter reflecting women's choices.
Or whether it was a matter concerning biology.
Yes.
And that's what really pissed them off.
That's the big killer that drives the feminists.
That's what pissed them off.
If there's physiological differences, everything about feminism goes out the window. And of course, there are physiological differences in the brain, differences in hormone. The whole endocrine system is different for women, and endocrine system does govern, how you interact with the world, your aptitudes and, what your interests are. All that is guided that way. And he pointed that out, and of course, they fired him. We knew about this story for a while. And it highlighted the point of what's happening in Silicon Valley, and that's prompted a lot of news inquiries. The smaller end of that is what YouTube is doing with people, with demonetizing channels, pulling videos. By the way, this is an opportunity. We're going to be posting this to both of our Patreon accounts early as a thank you to our Patreon supporters. But Google recently went into YouTube, Google, same thing. It's all the same company anymore. But I went in the other morning and I found like half of my videos were demonetized just overnight. It was amazing. And I appealed, 8 or 10 of them, and they reversed one and denied all the rest of them. They demonetized a video I did on dogs and their therapeutic value, especially for men who are alone. I know that's really terrible hate speech. And what they said was that it was spam and that it was misleading. And they removed a video that I did, just shut it down without, warning or anything, just took it off, a video about cautioning men to look at the effects on infants who come from borderline mothers. And I didn't include anything in there except research that I had been handed, by the way, by a very bright medical doctor who understood the research and got it all to me. And I did a video on it, and of course they pulled that. So I've had to respond by starting to move operations to a site called vid.me. I want to let people know that you can find me there under my name. But they are, I want to say slowly but surely, but it's not slowly, very quickly, they are shutting down conservative voices. They're shutting down, of course, men's rights MGTOW voices, those things, all going out the window at YouTube. And it's alarming to me. And I'm interested, Tom, in what you might have to say about what, if anything, there is to do about this problem. Because this is not, we're not talking about I can choose from 5 different cell companies to have a phone. We're talking about Google has a locked market on all this stuff, and they can effectively make you not exist by delisting websites, yes, by removing all your content, by denying monetization. And they're doing all of that to voices they don't like.
Yes. Yeah, they're very choosy. They pick the ones they don't like and step on them and squish them.
And they promote. I saw something the other day that somebody had their video demonetized because they were talking about the Las Vegas massacre that happened. And Google demonetized their video, saying that we don't want videos monetized that are focused on this disaster. Meanwhile, they were promoting Jimmy Kimmel's monologue on the disaster in their sidebar.
Yeah.
And of course, Jimmy Kimmel, we know, is a liberal. So it's just right out there in the open now. They're just blatantly.
Yes.
And they
I wish there was a good thing we could do about it. I haven't thought of one yet. Vid.me is certainly one place to go, and I've started putting Men Are Good videos there, as good. I'm sure I know you put an Ear for Men stuff there too. And even Patreon is getting iffy these days.
Yes, it is. They booted Lauren Southern for total bullshit.
Lauren Southern.
And
she had some wonderful videos up there. Oh my gosh.
Yep. And they are. I know that Paul Joseph Watson just recently announced he was going to be severely cutting back on his content. He just doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting too that when they cut Lauren Southern, I was a subscriber of hers, a patron of hers at the time. They did not inform me that her site was gone. I had to find out for myself that it was gone, which is kind of interesting too. It's sort of the fascist way to do it is you don't say anything. You just cut them off and don't say a word. It's like the old story about Stalin. Stalin would go into the Volga River in the barge, and he'd invite the local town's politicians out to the boat, and the ones that agreed with him, he'd send them home. The ones that didn't, he'd kill them and throw them in the river and go to the next town. He wouldn't tell anybody what was going on. He wouldn't say a word. He'd just kill them.
And that's the tactics we're seeing. They're just effectively shutting people down who are not spouting a line that they want to hear. And it's amazing that this is going on. I mean, you see them complain some about it on Fox News, but I mean, there should be riots by now.
Anyone who's read Brave New World, 1984, Animal Farm, any of that stuff should be freaking out because it's coming true right now. They're not even trying to be quiet about it. They're just blatantly cutting people off, and it's just it's pretty weird. We'll see what happens.
And this is not something the government's going to help with. This is not like back in the day. A lot of you are too young to remember, but back in the day, AT&T had a virtual monopoly on everything in telephonic. It was all AT&T. They were arrogant. They were crappy customer service. They didn't give a damn if you liked it. Why? Because they were the only game in town.
That's it.
And eventually we got a group of politicians with the nerve to go in and break them up, so that now we have competition in that industry and we don't have the arrogance. They're actually trying to get customers and competing for them instead of telling their customers to screw off when they got problems. But we don't have politicians even like that anymore.
Nope.
None of them.
Nope.
I don't see it happening. I don't see, pro-Trump, but I still don't think he's going to do anything about that either.
Yeah.
Because women control the money, and they want to appeal to women in advertising, in content, They damn sure don't want anybody, in sports broadcasting saying it's funny to hear a woman talk about running routes. Yeah, that horrible, man. How could that guy think of the little girls, Tom. They're not going to grow up and run routes now.
They're going to be hurt by all this, Paul.
Yeah. But that is what's passing for a reason to destroy a man's career.
Yeah.
Which is what they've done. He's toast now.
Oh, he's still making $100 million. I mean, he's going to be okay. He's still got 3 groups that are his sponsors, I think. 3 of them said, we're going to stick with you, and one, Dan.
I didn't hear that part of the story. Good. Well, it could be worse then, but there are, they almost destroyed Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah. And here's one thing you can do. Don't eat Dannon yogurt.
Yeah.
Screw them.
And listen, don't eat Dannon yogurt because it's shitty yogurt. But especially don't eat it.
Yeah, really, because of what they did. I mean, we need to start. It'd be great to be able to start to boycott these companies that are pulling this crap.
And you got to figure with Dannon, with all, due respect to Dannon, they are a yogurt company. They probably 75% female customers, granola heads and stuff like that live off of yogurt, and they're not going to mess with. And they are, and Dannon does not get what that's saying. What it's saying to their customers is that you guys are little snowflakes that just can't be bothered by something like this. And, women will get that message that they're incompetent little snowflakes. They can't handle anything. They have no autonomy, no agency, no individuality, no mind of their own. And you can tell them all of that. And if you say girls rule, they'll still buy your fucking product.
So true. So true. Oh, God.
I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, Tom. I don't think the boycotts will work.
No.
Boycott gynocentrism, that never works.
We've got to keep pumping out content. As long as we've got any kind of avenue to get content out there, we need to keep pumping it out. Pump out the truth. That's one thing we can do. And that includes not just you and me, but everybody out there. Start a channel on VidMe. Start doing podcasts. Start talking about what's pissing you off about what's going on and get it out there. If millions upon millions of people started doing that, we could shift things a little bit.
And if people like Paul Joseph Watson would simply lead an exodus into another program, very publicly, into another platform that will allow free speech.
Yes.
And if some of these other guys, I know that TJ over at Amazing Atheists, he's like in the red on subscribers. They're just removing so many subscribers.
Really?
That was part of that Paul Joseph Watson video I watched where he talked about screw this. And I really do wish that some of these people that have a lot more clout and influence and audience than I'll ever have would stand up publicly and say, okay, here's Minds.com or VidMe or some other platform. I'm going here. I want to encourage other people to go there. Let's walk out of this shit. Take as much audience as we can with this. Use YouTube as long as YouTube will let us get away with it to draw more people in to the other platforms and go from there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm not seeing any of that, and I don't have the audience to lead the way.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to see somebody like Stefan Molyneux
yes.
do that, or what's his name? I forget his name. But in fact, I'm surprised Stefan hasn't been, neutered. Because he's pretty strong.
He will. They're going to go after his stuff eventually. Yeah. They just got to take certain numbers out at a time, decrease morale, and there'll be nobody left to fight.
Yeah.
And so I hope Molyneux or Paul Joseph Watson or even Alec Jones or any number of these other really American Enterprise Institute, even though I don't agree with a lot of their shitty videos, they still speak unpopular truths a lot.
Yes.
And if some of these really with large audiences would do something, but of course, I get emails all the time saying if MRAs would do this and if MRAs will do that, it's just bloviating on my part to talk about what people should do. I just hope it happens.
Yeah, there you go. And what we can do is do it ourselves. That's what we can do, is we can just keep pumping out the content, which I'm planning on doing as much as I possibly can until I keel over,
Me too. I'll stop when I stop breathing. That's fine with me. In the meantime,
so keep breathing, Paul.
I'll stay on YouTube, and I will also be moving everything over to vid.me. And listen, this is not an endorsement of vid.me. All I know about them is they have a terms of service that reads like it's straight out of Google. No,
oh, really?
All the code words, no hate speech, no hurtful stuff.
Uh-huh.
But the word is that unless you're really doing hate speech,
right.
like kill all the Jews, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing something like that, they leave people alone.
Huh.
This is what I know so far. So I'm going to give that platform a try. That's not an endorsement of them, but it is an experiment to see, because you got to figure they're smaller, so much smaller than YouTube. They've got to be hungry for business,
yes,
for traffic, and hopefully that'll be enough to carry the day.
Yeah, they won't be kicking people out right away.
No, it'll take a while.
Yes.
And that'll give us time to build more options.
More options. Sounds masculine.
Yes, it does. More options, more decisions, things we can actually do. Imagine that. Imagine approaching life that way.
We like more options. That's right. Root options.
Well, oh, excuse me, my back hurts a little bit. There was a pea under my bed last night.
I was wondering when that was going to come.
Yeah, I probably need some narcotics and a team of therapy.
Thing, you.
Yeah, yes.
Indeed.
Okay.
Are we finished?
I think we are. I don't know, but nobody said no. So
well, I didn't hear it. So it's
I
been
didn't
fun.
hear it.
We're going to do this probably, once every other week, you think?
Yeah, once every other week for a while. We'll go ahead.
Get together and talk about the issues as they relate to men, and we're looking forward to doing it, and I hope you're looking forward to seeing it.
And we will put them out for our patrons.
Yes.
Let me just make a plug right here, and I just made one, and I'll make it again. I'm not monetizing any more videos. And pretty soon, none of us are going to be able to monetize videos. We need to count on people that use this material to benefit themselves, to kick into support. And you don't have to do much. As I explained on my last article at ABFM, you can pledge $1 per video and cap it at 1 video per month. And that matters. Doing that really matters.
Yes.
And enough people do that, because it takes me to produce 2 videos. I try to make my scripts very thoughtful and very well written, and I work very hard at it. It takes me a full week of work almost to do 2 videos per week.
Yes.
And I can't afford to do it unless I have support. So, guys, if you'll pitch in and help us, I know Tom will appreciate it. I will sure.
He sure would. And it takes Tom a week to do one,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
slower
Tom
than you
fiddles
are.
with fancy stuff. All I do is talk.
Yeah, I need to learn from you about that.
Tom plays in After Effects, which I tried to learn and I was too stupid.
That's not true. Oh, God.
Oh, well.
Anyway.
And that's it for me.
It's been
I'm
fun.
looking forward to doing these talks again.
Yeah, man,
there's
we're
a
gonna
lot
have
going
fun.
on these days.
Well, hope you join us.
All right, take care.
All right, we'll see you.